What's up, Devy peoples? Devy Dose is back in the house, and we got a live one for you tonight. We got super special guest, our friend, the one and only Alfred JF. What's up, man? How you
Hey
doing?
guys. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. Love talking, whatever it is, CFF, Devy, C2C, all this, basically college football in any capacity. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, man. Stoked to have you on. Always good to see you. And of course, Kyle, what's up, dude?
Not much. Making it through the week, we're at Thursday. Just gotta make it one more day.
You're almost there, dude. You going to another music festival this weekend? That's been like a
No,
recurrence for you.
no, I actually have to work this weekend, so it really
Oh,
doesn't matter.
Work.
My
As
weekend's not doesn't start till Sunday, and it's Sunday and Monday this week, so
Be a jerk, go to work. You got to do it, man. You got to do it.
gotta pay the
All right,
bills.
cool. We got a good one. We're going to talk top 10 Devy wide receivers. We got a couple of fun start sit questions, not quite as many as we did last week, but got a few good ones, some good players to talk about, and some fundamental stuff going on there. And we got a couple of trades to talk through, too. So, without further ado, Alf, you want to take us into our collective wide receiver one here?
Oh yeah, this is we were entering them into the spreadsheet on the chat, and I think there's no question, unanimous. Marvin Harrison Jr. Is the, I mean, he's in a tier by himself. Like, he's the wide receiver one. There's a decent chance he's like not only a first round pick, but like a top 5 pick. There are people saying he could be the second pick. A lot of people are projecting, I think Arizona has the first 2 picks. And so, some people are saying it's going to be Williams and Harrison back to back. So, like, we haven't seen a receiver drafted that high. And I mean, correct, maybe since Calvin Johnson, who was drafted 3rd overall. I mean, it's been a long time. Like, you're talking about true foundational cornerstone wide receiver one stud right out of the gate. He's done it since his freshman year. He had 3 touchdowns, I think, in the bowl game. And granted, there were some injuries, but still. And then since then, it's just been absolutely insane. He's a true Alpha X, everything you want. Profile's there, lineage is there, genes, DNA. There's just nothing else. He's a freaking son of a Hall of Famer, and he's playing like he's already in the Hall of Fame. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you about said it all. Kyle, you get any more juice to add to that? That was a pretty glowing
I mean, I would say, I didn't want to throw it around too much, but, the G word we could probably throw out here for this guy.
Oh, oof. Yeah. Yeah.
Look, I mean, it's just, and he's going to probably test, I think he's made, not Peter King, now I can't remember, the freak list for
Bruce Feldman.
Feldman's freak list. He's made him 2 years in a row. And I didn't realize this, but he's vert 40 times. He's going to test out the wazoo. Like, it's almost the cleanest profile. I'm not sure you can even poke holes.
Yeah. I mean, do you think he's a better prospect than like Jamar Chase?
Well, Chase was he was like a top 5 pick, wasn't he? So
yeah, he was
that's
5th.
Pretty great. The only thing, I think he had more as a freshman, but I mean, I'm not sure that matters. They both met every threshold. I think he's probably a little more refined than Chase. I know there was a big deal with Chase, coming out that he invited contact, and there was thought that he could be pressed because he wasn't super refined off the line, getting off press coverage and things like that. And he invited contact. But
found out about that real quick, though.
Yeah, I think he's just an animal, and it doesn't really matter. But I would say I think Harrison's probably a little more refined. I think we're splitting hairs here, but I think Harrison might be slightly better.
Yeah. I mean, Harrison does definitely have it all on the profile.
Just in terms of profile, yeah.
Yeah, I think
he's. Oh, go ahead.
I think he does need to do a little more this year. It's been pretty underwhelming in the first 4 games, but I don't know how much you have to contribute that to the quarterback play or the offense in general or what. But
wait a minute. Underwhelming? Hold on a second.
Yeah, he's at 1.09 yards per route run.
Oh, I guess it was Youngstown State, 7 for 160 and 2, but it was Youngstown State, and he went ham against Western Kentucky. But yeah,
3
he
for
was held in
32
check.
against Notre Dame, 2 for 18 against Indiana.
Yeah, he was held in check against Notre Dame. That's true.
It's 2.82 yards per route run on the season.
That is weird. It's.
That's
I
what
mean,
PFF
yeah,
is
Youngstown
It's
State and
different,
Western
huh?
Kentucky were absolutely insane, but I have to say I didn't quite realize that those were the two games that he was held in, that he went crazy.
I was looking at his freshman season.
That'll
I
do
was
it
looking at
for
the
you.
wrong yards per route run.
Look, I
I still
did a
think
lot
it
of-
might be the QB a little bit.
Yeah.
I
tough
think
to
it's
tell.
a lot the QB, and you look at the highlights from Marvin Harrison from last year, and just the traits are just outstanding. You know, even in devoid, and I'm a data guy first, but just his route running ability and the
It's
nuance to it at his size is
Mhm.
nuts. Like when you said he's a little more refined than Jamar Chase, he's like worlds more refined than Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is an absolute freak and a bully and a damn good
Mhm.
wide receiver, but
Mhm.
Harrison's much more technical than him and has size. I don't think he's as athletic as Jamar Chase. Not saying he's not extremely athletic, but Jamar Chase is a little bit of a, kind of a top tier of that.
The top
I
end
just-
speed, I would say maybe, but I'm not sure in like the short area and some of the change of direction. I'm not sure they might be pretty similar, but I think that overall, like if you're just on a wide open sprint, I would say maybe Chase. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he's so explosive, Chase is. But
Yeah,
yeah, man,
he
just
is.
the hip sync from Marvin Harris. So I watched, I did a film session on him and Igbuka back to back, and even though he's bigger, taller, and heavier, Harrison's
Mhm.
a better route runner than Igbuka, like
Mhm.
without question. And there's stuff that
Yeah.
Igbuka does awesome, but just watching them side by side was no question for me of which one I thought had more technique at this point in their in the game. So. All right, guys. Anything else while we're gushing on this dude, or are we moving it on?
I think we'll move on. I think this is pretty consensus. I mean,
Yeah,
not too much to argue about, really.
not too much to
Yeah.
say. Top 5 pick in the NFL draft, likely. I think our number 2 here is less consensus-y. And I will say, I'll just point out that I made this ranking, and then Kyle copied me about 5 minutes later. That's per usual. So, Kyle, you want to explain yourself on why you ripped off my
No,
takes?
if you're going to take the credit for it, you got to explain it.
Look, Evan Stewart from A&M. I've been on this kid as the wide receiver one of this class over Vernon since before last season started. And for me, it was again like I'm a sucker for the guy that's both athletic and technical at the wide receiver position. Not that Burden's not also an awesome wide receiver. He's very high in our rankings, but I really see kind of the second coming of Garrett Wilson when I watch Stewart film for the most part. I say as he drops a pass, but just the length, the extension, the attack at the catch point, combined with a guy that's explosive and for me a really good route runner. Has that agility in the lateral movement as well as verticality. I just really like this kid's game a lot, and he's proven out so far in the NCAA that he's kind of who I thought he was. And the metrics kind of really back it up too. He's been awesome. He's been productive this year. Wegman getting banged up certainly isn't going to help him, but nonetheless, he's going to have a good season. 2.79 yards per route run with a 13.2 ADOT right now. Just a little bit of rack. That's not really his game though. So yeah, I don't know. I am a huge fan. I think he's going to ball out at the NFL level. So what do you guys think about Stewart?
Yeah, I mean, I'll concur. I have him at spoiler alert, I have him at 4. So certainly like him a lot. I think in Devy, I think the top 5 are all extremely safe picks. I would not, I think we're splitting hairs. They're all very good prospects all the way through the NFL level. I think Stewart gets bumped a hair for me because of size. I mean, I'm definitely not as much of a size guy as I was 2 or 3 years ago. I don't mind the smaller receivers nowadays. But, when you're talking about a handful of good prospects, the smaller guy's probably going to get bumped down just a hair. 5'11", 170, I think listed. But he's very good. He was awesome as a freshman. And I think this guy is more of a Devy pick than a stud CFF player. So like for your C2C leagues, I'd bump Evan Stewart down a hair more. But, he's tracking to be a first round type NFL pick. Extremely fast, very explosive, great route runner. A lot of what the NFL wants in a guy is what Evan Stewart brings to the table. So no problem with him anywhere in the top 5. It's just a little of, he didn't return. One thing I'd like to see is some special teams work for Stewart, especially being a little bit of a smaller guy. But I mean, that's not the end of the world. On the high end, that's not as big of a deal as the later draft picks. I want to see the special teams.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be bad on special teams, but like A&M has so many small guys who are quick and fast that fit that role, like Muhammad and Smith and whatnot. But
I also think that Weigman, could have elevated that offense, but like Stewart will probably do something similar to last year. I mean, Max Johnson can like get him the ball, but it'll be like last year where it's kind of a boring line.
Yeah,
but he led his team in receiving as a true freshman. Like he did everything you want him to do.
Just say 2 games with Weigman this year, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns, 142 yards. 1 game with Max Johnson, 3 catches, 50 yards.
27 targets with Connor Weigman in the first
games.
2 games.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. You like a guy who's going to rely on him, but it shows that he's demanding the targets, so I like it.
Yeah, he's a guy who I think I like him slightly more than Burden because he's shown the ability to work downfield. He gets targeted at a much deeper depth, as where Burden is, catching at the line of scrimmage and running really fast with the ball, which I think is a pretty good profile too. But I just think this is more prototypical to what the NFL wants and needs. And I think the profile for Stewart compared to some of these other guys is just more of like a plug and play NFL wide receiver and not necessarily a guy that like has to get into the right scheme or like has to be schemed the ball a little bit. So that's why I'm pretty high on Stewart. I think he checks a lot of boxes.
Love it. Okay, Kyle, you want to tee off on the wide receiver 3 here?
I will take the wide receiver 3 because it looks like we're all pretty close except for you, EK, and that is Luther Burden, the aforementioned wide receiver 1-2 punch in the 2025 class. Evan Stewart, Luther Burden. Burden, just an insane physical freak. I mean, he was the consensus wide receiver 1 in his freshman class, mostly because of that athleticism and a little unrefined as a route runner, but seems to be, working on that, which is what we expect kids to do in college, and had kind of a lackluster freshman year, especially when you consider, another freshman on his team was taking the shine and Dominic Lovett, but he's moved into the slot this season for Missouri, and it's where that Missouri offense likes to run their offense through. So things are going really well for him in these first 4 games. He's got 40 targets in the first 4 games, caught 32 of them for 501 yards and 3 touchdowns. So pretty impressive stat line, playing against the completely non-con schedule for Missouri. So we'll see if he can keep it in the SEC play going forward this season.
Non-con, but upset Kansas State, a good ranked Kansas State team that plays scrappy defense, and he played really well. A few corrections, because my guy Luther Burden, I can't let him be talked down to. Lovett was a redshirt freshman, so he's a second-year player, and then also, I wouldn't say it was a lackluster freshman season. Now I know why you're probably saying that. The narrative was catching.
It's because the expectation was so high, coming in as the wide receiver 1. I agree that it was a good freshman season. If it was the wide receiver 8 in the class, we'd be super excited about his freshman season. But because he was the wide receiver 1, a little disappointing.
Okay. But a dude that scores 6 receiving touchdowns 2 rushing touchdowns and returns a punt for a touchdown. Like, I don't even care about anything else. Like, the guy was scoring from every possible spot on the field as a true freshman in the SEC. Like, I know the ADOT, which has improved this year. He's now, I don't know what his ADOT is off the top of my head this year, but I know his average per catch is like 15 yards instead of like
7.8.
7.8. Last season was 9.7.
So ADOT's actually lower.
Yeah.
I guess he's just yakking it up more because his average
per reception, 10.6.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
They're
scheming the ball to him. But we saw a few intermediate catches there, even in the highlights. I just think that he's done about what you could ask for, to be honest. I know that, look, you're going to Missouri, which I don't know why exactly. I don't know if he's just wanted to stay home, NIL, whatever. We are seeing some interesting choices. I know the number one edge is going to Missouri as well this year. Not that we care about that for fantasy, but they're pulling in in-state and local guys. Maybe they have a good NIL program, but I think you couldn't expect a ton production-wise in terms of raw production, but like he scored a ton. I mean, in multiple ways, which I just love. I love that. I'm a sucker for like the multiple dangerous ways the guys can get in the end zone. So I'm still pretty on him. That's why he's my 2. I just think he hasn't done anything to drop that. He was the number 1 in his class, like you said, and building in his second year.
I'm definitely not going to be the one to rain on your parade because I love Luther Burden too. I'm just trying to, play both sides a little bit, get both narratives out there.
No, it's a fair critique, but I think the one thing that I don't love is like I just wouldn't call it lackluster freshman.
That's fair.
I was going to say, I had that narrative in my head because of expectations. And I was actually listening to one of the C2C pods, and he was the only freshman that hit all 8 markers. So it was like, it was a post, right? One of your guys. I was like, oh, yeah, damn.
It just wasn't an overwhelming like volume fantasy year, but like he just did so many things well.
I'll say my knocks on him, which I think are more legitimate than like narrative street stuff, are that he's been almost purely a slot receiver, 82% of his snaps on the slot. The ADOT is garbage, obviously.
This season, right? 82%.
What?
This season, 82%. He was 85% out wide as a freshman.
82% slot receiver this year.
Yeah, that's a lot.
He has been productive. He's got 500 yards through 5 games, right? Like that's damn lot of production. My concern is I want to see him be able to work downfield. I want to see him be able to run routes. He's not going to out physical everybody at the NFL level the way he can in college. He's going to have to develop some nuance to his game or land in the perfect system where someone is going to run him like carbon copy, wide back, Deebo Samuel usage, which I don't trust that many offensive coordinators in the NFL to do. So I could see him coming in and having like a Treylon Burks-esque start to his NFL career. I think he's a better prospect in terms of athleticism than Burks, but I could just see that him being miscast and him not getting immediate traction. And I'm afraid of that, but I still love him. I mean, we're splitting hairs for the top 5 here.
I think that's all pretty reasonable, to be honest with you. I mean, I do think there's some concerns. Like I said, Marvin Harrison, there's no concerns, but when there's a little bit of issues here, and I think those are reasonable. So, sustained.
All right, Alf. I think it's back to you for the wide receiver 4 here, if you want to do the honors.
Yeah, and this is as close as we get, I think, to kind of consensus between the 3 of us. Someone's got him at 4, a 3, and a 3. That's Emeka Egbuka, Marvin Harrison's running mate over there, who's actually been he's been more consistent this year. I don't know if overall he's been more productive, but he's definitely put up more in each game. He didn't go crazy against the Youngstown State in Western Kentucky, but similar stats against Indiana and had 7 for 96 with 2 rushing attempts for 9 yards as well. He's also returning some punts. So they're kind of getting him the ball in multiple ways as well. So it's Ohio State. He produced enough as a freshman, I think, to not be a problem. And so Yeah, we like Emeka Egbuka. Take him a little bit longer, but he still had 9 for 191 as a freshman, so he had no concerns with a 0 year. Should be great. Good prospect. I don't know if I'm willing to be like, oh, he's a wide receiver 1 at the NFL level, but I think he's very safe and potentially day 1 or round 2 pick at worst, probably.
Yeah, I heard someone say Christian Kirk in a negative comp, but I mean, if you get like 2022 Christian Kirk, then like that's pretty sweet. But I think I think he gets drafted really highly because he's got elite athleticism, like really next level speed and explosion. I have some of those same concerns about him. Hasn't been like awesome versus man per se, like not bad, but just not amazing either. I'm actually trying to look at.
I'm actually wondering if you guys have it on the ready, what his slot route is. He kind of playing slot for them, and
It
Harrison
is,
kind of dominates the outside.
76.6% this year, 68.6% career.
Yeah, I was gonna say he strikes me as like kind of that big slot archetype a little bit, and maybe that's what they're doing, which honestly isn't terrible. You can have a good NFL career, a good fantasy career from that position.
I love slot wide receivers.
Last year, his yards per route run against man were significantly lower than his yards per route run versus zone, and that's changed this year. So maybe it's just a small sample size thing, but the yards per route run against zone was like 3 last year, and now it's 275, which is an awesome number. And against man right now, it's 2.32, which is an awesome number. So, maybe it's just sample size stuff. Maybe he's developed some nuance in his routes. I feel like he lacked a little bit of that, was the guy that was relying on his athleticism to get open, which again isn't going to work all the time. Like not being sharp into his breaks and in breaking and out breaking routes, stuff like that. But definitely a good route runner against zone even last year. And I do think that there's some evidence that he's kind of rounded out his profile a little bit more this year. So I'm pretty excited for him.
Yeah.
No, to me, Egbuka is a guy who can eat in the middle of the field and make things happen once the ball's in his hands, and just that kind of slot receiver that can bail quarterbacks out. And I think that leads to a lot of receptions at the NFL level, and receptions are points in PPR, so I'll take that anytime.
I will say though, he does have that speed to threaten downfield, where like some of the guys we cast as a slot role don't have the explosiveness to win deep on go routes in the NFL or down the seam, and he does. So he could exceed. Like he's a guy that I think could easily exceed our expectations to the next level. I'm not expecting him to be a wide receiver 1 off the rip, but I won't be surprised if he does either. I think he's got the tools. If he lands in the right system and there's a need for his services there, I think he could really surpass.
Yeah, 6 receptions on 13 targets over 20 yards last season, so pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on Egbuka, guys?
Nope. Safe prospect.
Love him. Big trade target for me last year. Still acquiring shares where I can. So what do we got here, boys? Mr. Zachariah Branch. Dude, is it? I was looking at our rankings too, and I was like, I don't think we're high enough on Zachariah Branch.
I don't think you're high enough on Zachariah.
Hold me back. Someone else talk about him first, because I could just. I'll wait till the end.
Kyle, you want to lead off? I just said a lot on Egbuka.
Sure. This is a guy who was also a consensus wide receiver 1 coming in out of high school. Just has a 5th gear that a lot of guys don't have, and he reaches it really quickly. Super bursty, super fast. Has made plays as a true freshman since the rip, since game 1. In all phases of the game. Punt return touchdown, I know. Kick return touchdown, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And then I think a rushing touchdown already, and of course a receiving one as well. So playing a lot like Burden in his freshman year that I called lackluster, but I was quickly corrected on. So
well, to be fair, his average per reception right now is 13.7. I don't know what his ADOT is, but
5.8.
Okay, so actually it's not that dissimilar.
Nope. But yeah, I mean, I love a guy who you can give the ball to and he'll just make plays. So
Look at that. Just
yeah.
golly. Electric. I mean, just absolutely insanely electric, this guy. Quick plug for my show, my recruiting show for C2C called The Official. If you're listening to this and you haven't plugged into The Official, go find us on YouTube. We also have a podcast, or we do the same show on podcast. But, we were talking about Branch all the cycle. I think Matt, one of our teammates on The Official, said he moves like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I think we're already seeing that here in the first 3 or 4 games. I mean, it's just it's just his movements are just that very sharp, incredible change of direction. Doesn't lose upfield motion when he's going side to side, if that makes any sense. That's what Tyreek Hill does, where he jukes, but there's no lack of continuing upfield momentum. So it just makes him so hard to get a hand on, incredibly elusive. And like you said, scoring multiple ways already. I mean, I think he's I think I saw a tweet. It's the first player, I don't know if there's ever, or in 97 years or something, to have a punt return, kick return, and receiving touchdown in the first 3 games of the season or something like that. I mean, he's just come out bonkers, and it's everything you could ask for. So sitting at, sitting at 5 for me, 4 for Kyle, I think, and
I just moved him up. I was wrong. I admit that I was wrong.
Just get him in your top 5. I think, like you said, top 5, everybody we like. I wouldn't say you have to push him higher than that, but he's doing it, man.
I just think I have no doubt in my mind this kid is going to enter the NFL and just destroy guys as a rookie. He's going to step on the field and make people look stupid the same way he did as a true freshman playing against 21, 22-year-old kids, at USC. Sure, they're scheming him touches. Whatever, man, you're scheming your true freshman.
Yes, that's the answer right there, EK. That's the way to think about it. Yes.
And just the film is just astounding. Like you said, I watched his film. I was behind you guys on freshman this year, but when I first turned him on, I was just oh, that's fucking Jalen Waddle out there.
Yeah.
That's what it is. He just has that level of explosiveness, and even some stuff on his high school film that I didn't see on Waddle's. There was one play on his highlight reel where he was just completely horizontal, laid out, stretched to his full extension while running full speed, and brings the ball down to his fingertips. I'm just that's a special kind of talent we don't see, right? There's only a couple talents like that in every class. So I have no doubt in my mind. I acquired a few shares of him in supplementals, and it's not enough. He's been impossible to trade for since game 1.
My issue is I just win all the CFF sides, and I can never get guys like Zachariah Branch.
You get him in the 6th pick or something this year. Really, I had
all my picks are 1.12. EK. Come on.
There you go. That's humble brag, because you're always
modesty becomes you, my friend. All right. Any more gushing on Branch before we move on?
I mean, so he rounds out the top 5 for me, and I think that's where you cut off. I mean, there's still some good players, but I think that's where you cut off very, very safe, all likely first-round picks. That we can project already, even with Branch as a freshman. So I think this is a little tier break. I mean, Harrison's in his own. 2, 3, 4, 5 are a tier, and so now I think we go to the next tier.
I'm with you. I think that's the end of the known, truly elite talent, right? And even then, I think Buka, I could say, blends a little bit more into the next tier. Honestly,
yeah.
The next tier for me is still guys that are getting first-round draft capital, for me, Nabers, first-round draft pick, no question in my mind. Rome Odunze, first-round draft pick. If he's not, he's 34 or 36 overall, right?
Xavier Worthy, too.
Xavier Worthy, I think he's a top 20 pick for sure. Just the speed, right? We see the NFL draft John Ross in the top 12. You don't think Xavier Worthy's getting top 20 capital, right? He's Hollywood Brown. We'll get to these guys shortly, but I'm just saying, I think the next round, still super safe as a value, insulated investment. maybe I'm less sure they're going to dominate the next level though. We get into these guys. So I like Nabers more than you guys, obviously, but not much. We're kind of right there with him. So I don't know. Just when you guys want to lead off on him, or should I take the reins?
I'll give you the bat, I guess, first. Nabers, not really, honestly, a guy I was on last year at all. I mean, there were some things to like there, but really going into this year, I think he's just proved me wrong for the most part. 1,000 yards last season and 523 through the first 4 games for LSU this season. Done it against Mississippi State and Arkansas. Really his 2 biggest games. My one concern is like upper echelon competition. He hasn't really like pushed the envelope. 5 for 42 against Florida State last year. I'm trying to find Alabama. 6 for 49 against Alabama last year. 7 for 69 against A&M. 5 for 128 and 1 against Georgia is pretty good, but I think that there's a 59-yard touchdown in there.
If you take away all of his long pass, if you take away the player X's good plays,
I know.
Take away the stuff they do good.
No, I just like doing that. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like Florida State's not a trash team. He did pretty well against them. Arkansas
He was pretty underwhelming against Florida State. 6 for 67 on 12 targets.
Yeah. Also,
I mean, I think we shouldn't. I think this is just more of a philosophical issue. I think we can get in big trouble, like really nitpicking down to like, what did he do against this one team? I mean, take a step back, like you said. I mean, 1,000 yards, 400 yards as a freshman, that beats any thresholds. 1,000 yards as a sophomore, leading the team this year. Although Brian Thomas is having quite a great year as well for LSU, but I think he's doing great. I mean, if you want to nitpick, I'd rather nitpick like things you see on tape, not necessarily like, oh, he didn't do something against FSU.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing there, if that's where we're going, he doesn't really have like an elite trait to me. There's not something I see in the NFL where he hangs his hat on. Like Branch has that speed. Harrison has his like size speed combo. Like all these guys kind of ahead of him and near him. Like Barry Brown has the same kind of like game-breaking speed. Burden like that superb burst and like power. I just don't see anything. He's just good all around.
He's a good wide receiver. He's good at playing the position. He's a good route runner. He does.
Yeah, I think
that was
a pretty
nice
good
route there. Like
I think he's a pretty good.
Double move. I mean, I think he's a really good route runner. I don't know if he's like the best route runner in college football right now, but I think he's like on like a fairly elite tier in that. Honestly, just consistently getting separation. That's why I like him so much. I think that's what the NFL wants now. They kind of moved away from like tall guy run down the sideline jump ball. Like they want guys that can create separation, make things easy on the quarterbacks, make things work with less accurate quarterbacks that are in the league right now. I also think like ball control, ball skills, concentration, ball tracking downfield, and then he adds like a rack element to his game too. That he's good at that. I think there's a hell of a lot to like about him. I got a couple of stats for you too. 5.46 yards per route run versus zone. That's a lot, dude.
Sheesh.
A very good number. And it's not like
he's
just a zone guy. His yards per route run versus man is 2.79. Like also a phenomenal number. Like, I don't know, man. Like the numbers jump out at me. 2 years of what was looking to be like really high level production and film that like I like a lot. He caught my eye as a freshman a little bit, just getting open, just getting on the field, doing work, getting down in the dirt and getting misthrown balls. Like I love that stuff, man. Give me the guy that just wants to win and he's gonna like outwant the other guys and he's athletic enough. Like he's still gonna run like 4.4 something. He's not like a 4.55 guy. He's just not like elite fast. Like I don't know. Give me a dog with like 4.45 speed, and I'm pretty happy with what I got at the prospect.
I like EK's take there. Just a little context. I did do kind of a video prior to last year on Nabers, kind of did a little bit of a deep dive. So when he was I think he was a junior, he dominated in high school, then transferred, was not allowed to play as a senior. So his recruiting ranking kind of took a hit. He wound up at LSU, but, hadn't played in like a year, showed up as a freshman, and then I forgot what his exact numbers were, but like something 400 yards, a pretty nice year, 28, 417 and 4 with it as a true freshman. Like that's fantastic. So kind of came in, didn't play for a year, was really good, and then went nuts, basically nuts. I mean, in the context of that offense last year, I think the market share was very high, over 1,000 yards. And last year, prior to the season, I think he was like being drafted as like a wide receiver 100-ish in C2C. And I had him as a wide receiver like 27, which turns out wasn't high enough. But I was like, this guy is about to pop off. Why is a guy who had 1,000 yards last year wide receiver like 100 in C2C drafts? So, he was just forgotten, I think. Had a little bit of a weird story, how he came to college, not a lot of hype coming in because of the missed year and all that kind of stuff. But he was really good, even as a junior in high school. I think people forgot about him a little bit. He's a very good player. We have them all, about
7,
6
and 6.
6. And so, and I agree with, I've heard a little first round buzz. I think it's pretty possible, actually. So late into the first round, not like Marvin Harrison top 5, but I think like into the first round.
He's that second wave of wide receivers, in the 20s or the teens, right? You see,
and who else I would say probably did not have an elite trait? This is going to be blasphemous. I mean, did Justin Jefferson have an elite trait? Like, he's just really good at everything. He wasn't huge. He wasn't super fast. He was an excellent route runner. Yeah, nuance and all that. But that's kind of hard to define.
That's already easier to miss. You know what I mean? In the forest, right? It's easier to miss that tree of route running.
And I'm not saying he's Jefferson at all, but I think he's a really good player. And some of his parts are whole greater than some of his parts kind of thing. And so I have no problem having him where we've got him. It's going to be hard to bump him higher, but I think he's about right where we've got him.
Yeah, I'm definitely not advocating for him to be like 12 or something. I still have him 7 myself. I'm just, nitpicking.
But that's this is an interesting point here, though, like why I love C2C and Devy. A guy who was like off the board, barely in the double digits as a wide receiver last year. Now we're talking about as a top 10 Devy wide receiver. This is the kind of value that gets me so excited to play in these leagues. And if you're sharp enough, you can clean up because you can get guys like this. I mean, this doesn't happen every day, but and this is an extreme example, but this is why this format's so fun.
It's sharp and lucky because I got a ton of Nabers last year in the late third round of supplementals because he wasn't owned anywhere. But it's I also took 3 or 4 other guys
right
in that range.
Yeah, you always need a little luck. You always need a little luck.
Yeah, but I think that's why we've loved this game specifically, right? Because when you got your target set, you could go after them aggressively, and you can acquire these guys when they're just starting to break out, or you think they're about to, and then feel like a genius when it works out.
Yeah, my first C2C draft, I completely bungled the first 3 rounds, and then ended up with 2 first-round picks at round 31 and 32 or something.
Yeah.
So,
it's hella fun, man.
It's very fun.
All right.
So shout out C2C.
Okay,
who do we have? Let's go here.
Barian Brown, a guy I am completely not partial to at all. He's from Nashville. He's a Tennessee kid, so I've been rooting for him.
Makes sense now.
Since he was in high school, so really wanted him to go to UT, but totally different story. At Kentucky now, ball out as a true freshman. Did some really impressive things with Will Levis last year. Had 79 targets, turned that into 51 receptions for 625 yards and 4 touchdowns. Just an absolute burner. This dude has all the speed in the world. Similar to like a Branch type. He was, scoring in different ways as a true freshman. I think he also had a punt return and kick return touchdown. I know for sure he had a couple punt return touchdowns.
Yeah, definitely scored. I pulled him up. Sorry to interrupt, but he did have a punt return. He had a punt return that last year and this year, but a kickoff return for both in both years. Mm-hmm. But he returned punts, just didn't score. But
so a guy who's gotten it done in a lot of different ways. I think targeted downfield at a pretty high clip, 17 targets as a true freshman at 20 plus yards. So, I mean, a guy who was used in the YAC game and a guy who was used downfield, a little bit slender. I do think that's a fair knock on the smaller side of things, but that doesn't worry me too much. It probably should worry me more than it does, but not something I usually knock guys for.
Yeah. Actually, I'm finding some pleasantly surprising Barry and Brown statistics right now looking, because I haven't really dug into the data from this year yet, but his yards per route run versus man right now is a healthy 3.53. I mean, that is stupendous. His ADOT this year, 18.3. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's an awesome profile. It's the guy that wins downfield against man coverage. Like, that's desirable. I might be too low on him, and I think the talent's always there. I'm like a what have you done for me lately guy on some level, and the fact that Dane Key has been healthily outproducing him this season is off-putting to me. But at the end of the day, I mean, the NFL loves traits. I just think he has to do a little more to be in like a first-round conversation.
I wouldn't call Dane Key healthily outproducing him this season. Dane Key is 13 for 196 and 2, and Berrien is 15 for 214 and 1.
Oh, so
yeah, but the real problem is Tavion Rudolph, or is it
Robinson?
Rudolph? Tavion Robinson is kind of leading the league, leading the team, but he's also like a fifth-year senior at this point.
He's a sixth-year senior at this point.
Yeah. So I mean, that's not. It's not awful as long as these guys, both Key and Brown, can kind of just stay afloat and still be productive. I'm not going to knock them too bad, but the 6-year guys getting a little preference. I mean, that happens sometimes. So I would agree with everything you guys said, and he's very explosive. I do agree. I don't mind small, short, but as long as they're thick. I do like the slender, which is exactly the word you used. That's a little more concerning when they're kind of taller but skinny.
Fantrax has him at 166 pounds.
Yeah, that's what
that's Xavier Worthy. So we have a guy ranked pretty high who has a similar build. That's
Devonta Smith too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's been Worthy. That's been Smith. I'm not sure he's that good of a route runner, but he's definitely a burner. And he was so fun to watch as a recruit. I mean, oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Just his high school stuff was phenomenal.
I saw him live a couple times.
Fast. Oh, yeah. Just so fast. This acceleration is just nuts. And he was listed as an athlete, I think, for a while, so he wasn't on a lot of receiver lists, but he was pretty good looking prospect. And
he played a 7v7 with AD Mitchell and Mac Markway. It was a fun little team.
Yeah, that must have been great.
Yeah.
So I like him. I think let's see. I've got him at 8. He's a guy that could slip. I'm not ready to drop him just yet, but he's a guy that could kind of find his way a little lower depending on how the season goes.
And he's a guy for me too that could be the wide receiver 3 in his class. Pretty easily. It just
could go either way. He's a little on the fence right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Or he could go down. He could explode, and I could, have him in the same tier as Stewart and Burden. But I just want to see steady production, and unless we think, next year him and Key both go for 1,300 yards, and it's Rome Odunze and Jalen McMillan. And we think they're
quarterback.
Sorry, yeah. I mean, Devin Leary. Maybe they get some other guy. I don't know, but
Dayton. Whoever's on the roster, I think Dayton Wade or Destin Wade. Destin Wade is not it.
Oh man.